Jadon Sancho arrived at Manchester United with so much promise, but it just hasn't worked out since he's been a United player. So what has happened? What has gone wrong? Is this the end for Jadon Sancho? Let's talk about it. I think it's fair to say that the Jadon Sancho transfer hasn't worked out for everybody. Anybody. Manchester United, Jadon Sancho, England, nobody involved. What's gone on? It really is confusing to United fans. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to do a full chronological look in a timeline of key moments and points that we can sort of help to understand the character of Sancho, the red flags that we've seen before, everything that's happened at City, at Dortmund, at United, at England, and piece it all together. That's what I'm going to try and do in this video. So you can let me know what you think about it all in the comments below, all right? But I'm going to go far back. I'm going to start back here in 2017 when Jadon Sancho was offered the chance to become City's highest paid academy player and rejected the opportunity. Guardiola said that he shook hands with Sancho on a deal that would have made him the club's highest paid academy player, only for him to tell him that he wanted to leave City, and therefore Guardiola left him out of the pre-season tour squad. As revealed by the Telegraph, Sancho reacted by failing to turn up for training for several weeks prior to his move to Dortmund. Not exactly the best sort of response from a 17-year-old. But given the issues that Ten Hag has had with Sancho, you might say that's a bit of a red flag and a bit of a link to what's gone on with Manchester United. Now, we'll fast forward here to 2019 when Sancho was a Dortmund player. And you'll see here kind of a similar headline to what Sancho has been saying with Ten Hag, that he's been scapegoated. Keyword there. This is back from David Ornstein back in 2019, and we'll read through this article too. Alarm bells started to ring last month when he was dropped and fined by Dortmund before their meeting with Mönchengladbach for returning late from international duty, with sporting director Michael Zorc and manager Lucien Favre both publicly expressing criticism. He was then removed after 36 minutes against Bayern Munich, and you can see there he was left humiliated, scapegoated, and unprotected by his employers. So he was dropped by Dortmund after returning late from international duty. And I've just shown you there an example of in 2017 at City when he refused to turn up to training after being left out of the pre-season squad. Again, red flags. We fast forward to the COVID times here at Dortmund. And this is, I found this quite an interesting one from Emre Can on Jadon Sancho's decision to get a haircut. This was during COVID when the rules were there in place. Sancho reacted to it by saying it's an absolute joke, but this is what Emre Can said about Jadon. He said he needs a little bit of a guidance. He's a great boy, also off the pitch. It's true that I get along with him very well. He just has to be a little bit smarter about these things. Everyone needs a hairdresser, but he needs to grow up. He can't afford to make mistakes like that in the future. We are, as a team, are also responsible. We are not annoyed by him. We know that he has to be more disciplined in some things, but he knows that too. I don't think he does it on purpose to create a scandal. Maybe he doesn't realise it. Maybe he trusts too many people in some things. He needs people to guide him. That's where the environment is very important. Emre Can there, not even slightly throwing Jadon Sancho on the bus. He's obviously annoyed with him and what he's done. But he's saying he maybe needs a little bit of guidance. And it was around about that time here, look, September 2020, when Sancho revealed that he was having that sleeping problem at Borussia Dortmund, which I've spoken about before. In Germany, there's a few things from Jadon Sancho. There's a few things I still need to work on. Sometimes I'm late to training. And it's things like this that I need to work on because I have a sleep problem. Little things like that where I need to be a little bit more professional and put things right. But I'm working on it. And the club's helping me. And the team is helping me slowly but surely. As I get older, I feel like I'm learning new things. People do say that I'm very mature for my age. I guess leaving home and learning things for myself has helped with that. So these sort of questions of professionalism existed at City when he was 17, existed at Dortmund. Emre Can has mentioned them there. And Sancho's inwardly looking and understanding that he needs to improve in those things. And we know what happened then. Jadon Sancho came to Manchester United. 1 year after we tried to sign him, we signed him. And there were some good times. Hell yeah, there were some good times. But Jadon Sancho at Manchester United, it was up and down. It was massively up and down. And he was never quite at the levels of Jadon Sancho from Borussia Dortmund. And then obviously Solskjaer got sacked. And then Ralf Rangnick came in. And I think from this point on is where it starts to take a slightly different turn. But, well, let me just run through it for you, okay? So this is what Ralf Rangnick said back in, when was this? January 2022. He was saying that it feels like Jadon Sancho is struggling to cope with the pressure at United. And he went on to explain it himself. He's playing in a different league and he's playing for one of the biggest clubs in the world. It's also got to do with a lot of things up here in his head. Whenever I see him train, he's showing up and he's one of the best players. Now it's about showing the same kind of level on the pitch. Everyone expected from him that he would be one of the best players in the team. This is psychologically, emotionally, a more challenging situation than the one at Dortmund. And these are exactly the kind of steps that he has to make, to become a top player for the next 10 years at this club. Rangnick there, he's saying what he feels he needs to say as a manager in public to help Jadon Sancho. Now, Jadon Sancho's camp was not happy at these comments. This is from Matt Dickinson from The Times. This is what he said. Perhaps Rangnick hopes that the truth will set Sancho free after pissing him off. The players' camp is said to have been less than thrilled that a manager and an interim one is airing those woes in public and tapping his skull when asked what the problem is with the club's £73 million attacker. And you'll notice that's pretty much the same response to what's happened with Erik Ten Hag. Now, at that time, Jadon Sancho was going through, they are pretty sure they're around about the same time. That was around about 18th of January, wasn't it? Yeah, it was. Jadon Sancho was going through a bereavement, a loss in the family. He missed, I think it was Brentford. It was Brentford, so there. And maybe the Everton game after. It was 1 or 2 games that he missed. And this is what Rangnick said at the time. Didn't train yesterday because he still asked us not to train. He attended a funeral and it's affected him quite a lot. He's expected to be back in training this afternoon at 3 o'clock. But right now, I'm not sure if he will be available for the game tomorrow. It was an important member of the family, somebody he was close to all his life. I have to wait and see. I will speak to him before training and after training and take the decision. So that was at that time where Jadon Sancho was going through a bereavement. And it was at that time where Rangnick was trying to help Sancho. Now, if we fast forward to November of that year, so that was back in January. This is in November of 2022. And that's when we got Jadon Sancho kind of doing a mystery blackout on Instagram. And everybody was like, what's going on here? We didn't really know what was going on. It was a bit of a weird. It was kind of hard to understand. And at that time, you saw these stories coming out. That's when Jadon Sancho was dropped by Gareth Southgate for being late to an England team meeting. So that's Dortmund where he's done that. He's refused to train at City. He's late back from international duty at Dortmund. And now he's late to international duty, a meeting at international duty. So he's subsequently dropped from the England squad. And then it was at that time, about a month later, is when this happened, which is the first big thing with Erik Ten Hag and Jadon Sancho. Erik Ten Hag took I'm pretty sure it feels like an unprecedented decision to give Jadon Sancho 3 months off during the season. And this is what Erik Ten Hag said at the time. He goes, we didn't see him in the last few games for United, so he wasn't in the right status. Now he's on an individual program, and we want him to finish that program. Hopefully, we'll see him back soon. He's not fit enough to be here. Sometimes there are circumstances with fitness and mood. Now he's on a physical program, and our aim is to get him back as quickly as possible. He was good on tour, but also when the league started, he played some good games with Liverpool, Leicester and Arsenal. Afterwards, we got a drop in a level. What happens sometimes is you don't know why or what is causing it. That is what we're doing now, trying to research, and we try to get him back. It's a combination of physical, but also mentally. And that part there was also criticised by Jadon Sancho's camp, saying that Ten Hag didn't have, I believe, permission to speak about Jadon Sancho's mental health. I don't really feel that that's Erik Ten Hag going after Jadon Sancho's mental health. He said he's not ready physically and mentally. I feel like that's kind of been dragged into a position where it wasn't. But Erik Ten Hag gave him 3 months off, and we didn't see Sancho for a few months. All we saw was grainy photos of him training with some coaching staff out in the Netherlands, but Jadon Sancho disappeared. And then Jadon Sancho came back. And I remember that photo. You remember that photo at the time? You look at it and you go, this is the start of Sancho and Ten Hag, and this is the beginning of it. We're going to see a new Sancho coming back. He had a smile on his face. Ten Hag looked like a proud dad. And this is what Ten Hag said about him after the game. He said, it was great for Sancho. The fans cheered him and gave him a loud applause. That's great. He sees how the fans like him. To give him this love, so we are happy with that. We need to keep that connection with the fans, and we need that all season. It is also already growing. So I hope we can keep going with this process. And, well, we did for a little bit. You know, Man United, I think he made his return against Forest on the start of Feb. End of Feb, Man United winning the League Cup. Everything felt at that moment in time like the club was really heading in the right direction. Really positive vibes. That was at the time we beat Barcelona as well. Jadon Sancho was involved in all of that. And then, obviously, United kind of tailed off towards the end of the season. Everybody did. Not just Jadon Sancho, but just in general. And the pre-season tour comes around, and Jadon Sancho was probably one of Manchester United's most impressive players, a bit like he was in the previous pre-season tour. And then this happened after Arsenal.
Jadon was on his performance on the training. We didn't select him.
So he was that a form of discipline, would you say?
No, you have to reach a level every day on Manchester United, and we can make choices in the front line. And so for this game, he wasn't selected.
So, Jadon Sancho not selected by Eric Ten Hag against Arsenal when he said it was to do with his performance in training. The consequence of that was this statement here from Jadon Sancho, saying, look, please don't believe everything you read. I will not allow people to saying things that is completely untrue. I've conducted myself in training very well this week. I believe there are other reasons for this matter that I won't go into. I've been a scapegoat for a long time, which isn't fair. And as I said, if we rewind to, what date is it? Let me pull this up here. We rewind to 2019 when Sancho said he felt scapegoated by Dortmund staff. And we now fast forward to Jadon Sancho's reaction to Ten Hag's statement there. He said that he's scapegoated. All I want to do is play football. So Sancho called Eric Ten Hag a liar here. All right? He's saying, no, don't believe what you're reading. Believe me. I trained well. We know what happened after that. Jadon Sancho was banished from Manchester United training because he refused to apologise to Eric Ten Hag for that decision. And that's a decision which Jadon Sancho has doubled down on. We're a couple of weeks after that now. 12 days after that actually happened. And Jadon Sancho is still not apologising, to the point where his teammates are trying to step in and help him to do that. Jadon Sancho has been urged to apologise to Eric Ten Hag by his teammates. Rashford, Shaw and Maguire have all stepped in with a bid to try and resolve the issue. You've got the PFA now stepping in. PFA, of course, represent Professional Footballers Association. They represent the players. They're there to try and mediate and to try and step in between and solve this situation. But instead, Jadon Sancho has refused to apologise again. Instead, Jadon Sancho has now gone dark on Instagram again. Second time that that's happened. And we find ourselves in a situation where I don't really see how there's going to be a resolution. For me, and the reason I've done this video is because I think there are so many points that you can look at throughout Sancho's whole career, whether it's refusing to turn up to training because you weren't included in the pre-season squad for City when you were 17 years old, whether it's you being late returning to training with Borussia Dortmund in 2019, whether it's being late to meetings with the England squad, whether it's questioning Ralf Rangnick's comments about the psychological side of the game, which is an important part of being an elite athlete. Absolutely huge part of being an elite athlete. In fact, I would actually argue it defines an elite athlete. At the very, very top, when you want to be top dog and you want to get to that top 5%, the psychological side of sport is probably the most difficult. Because at that point, you're already a supreme athlete. At that point, it's though the margins you're going to get may well be psychological. And Ralf Rangnick tried to help him, questioned him. Eric Ten Hag has also done the same thing and tried to help him. And nothing has happened. Nothing has worked. For me, I don't really think there's going to be a way back for Sancho at Manchester United. It feels like it at this point. I might be wrong. But it feels like Sancho's far more likely to be included with the likes of Alexis Sanchez and Angel Di Maria and Romelu Lukaku as these big money signings that haven't worked out than he is of having a redemption arc and coming back. I'm not ruling that out, but first of all, he's got to apologise to Eric Ten Hag, which he has absolutely refused to do so far. It's a messy situation. It really is, and it's a complicated situation. And I'll be honest, I think there's still more to come from this. I think we're going to learn more from Jadon Sancho, from his own personal perspective. I think there's going to be interviews on this. I think that Eric Ten Hag might open up about it a little bit more. But that's the sort of full story of everything to date, chronologically, through the timeline, to help you understand a bit more about what's gone on. You can let me know what you think in the comments below. But it's not a good situation. And I don't really see it ending well. And in fact, it feels like it kind of already has ended for Sancho at United. You let me know what you think in the comments.